Hello, hi, good morning, everyone. Do not need to reply me. Just please stay on mute so that everybody can listen to this webinar easily. If you are unmute by mistake, then please mute yourself. I will allow you last 15 minutes to unmute yourself and ask any questions. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, just go and type it in the chatting options. I hope it's clear. So, and I also hope if everybody is
तेव्हा मी पण तुला ऑनलाईन मध्ये घेतो.
Sorry,
Hello.
who was that? As I said, guys, please go on mute. With nobody is interested to listen to any of the noise behind you. So please go on mute for the sake of other students as well.
Hello, Vivek. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Okay. This is Rupesh.
Hi, Rupesh. Good morning. How are you?
Hello. Good morning. Good morning. So, before starting the session, I just, on behalf of NIT family, I welcome you. To all the participants, I request to keep your audio muted so that the smooth conduction can occur. Before starting for the session, let me introduce our today's guest, Mr. Vivek Vivakar, Senior Analyst Procurement, Symphony, Dubai, UAE. Sir completed his BE in Mechanical Engineering from Nagpur Institute of Technology in the year 2012 and MBA in Responsible Management from Audencia Business School, Nantes, France in the year 2016. Sir is having more than 6 years of experience as a procurement professional. I request all the participants to mute their video and audio and listen to sir. So let us start. Vivek, hello.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. So I hope everybody are able to see my screen. It's fine. Nobody need to reply me. Rupesh, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Then I assume that everybody is. So this is the agenda for today's webinar. We'll start with a short introduction of myself. Then I'll let you know what is difference between purchasing and procurement. Procurement responsibility, importance, what is a CPO, what is a career in procurement look like, and then in the last Q&A. Sorry guys, I'm listening too much of noise. Sarang Kurwade, please go on mute. Nitin Mandavgade, please go on mute. Thank you. Okay. So I did my engineering, as Rupesh mentioned, in from Nagpur Institute of Technology. I passed out in 2012. I then started working in a small manufacturing company in Mumbai as a product development engineer. You all might be probably wondering, like from mechanical engineering to procurement, what is procurement first of all, and how the transition and why the transition. So there is no particular journey that an engineer should decide on. It should come from whichever is more interesting for you, whichever are your special skills, and whichever work you feel and love working, and not that it's just defined because you have some particular studies. Nothing is in studies. Everything is in what you love to do, because you have like around 40 subjects in the entire 4 years. You could go with any of the subject, and all these 40 subjects will deliver you skills and not knowledge. It will deliver you the skills to how to apply that knowledge that you have studied. So feel free to choose your career path. Do not restrict yourself only into engineering field. I did the same. I went to a manufacturing company, started working as a product development engineer, but then later I realized, no, this is not for me. So then I joined Zygus in Mumbai itself, worked there for almost for 2 years again. as a procurement analyst. Then I did my master's. Then I did my internship again. Even after doing my master's, after having 3 years of work experience, I still did an internship, but at a global level because I wanted a global experience. So I did my internship in Spain, in Barcelona. From there, I started working in a company called Symphony in France. I worked in France for 1 year. I worked in Rome, Italy for 1 year. And now I am here on another assignment in Dubai from last 1 year. So that's been my journey. As a senior analyst in procurement, I lead my team of buyers, I lead a team of buyers, I lead a team of analysts. We go and consult companies, help them save money in any ways or means. Okay, so now basically moving on, how do I do that? Okay, so to start with something little bit more fun, I'll show you a video. What is the difference between a purchasing and procurement? Both sound same or similar, but what is the basic difference? I'm sure everybody in India love cricket. So let me show you with the example of cricket. This is what we call gully cricket or street cricket. Okay, so this was street cricket. Did you observe something? What are they using for stumps? What are they using for tools? There are people coming on in between the road. There is cars coming in between the roads. Now let's see the professional international cricket. Okay, so this was a professional cricket as we all see on television. So now coming to the differences. According to me, if I want to explain anybody what is the difference between a purchasing and procurement, I would love to explain in terms of an analogy of a cricket. For example, scale. So clearly in street cricket, you can see that there are only small groups of team. Like, but if you want to have a large group of team, then it's like you have to get more and more professional, more and more better in terms of tools. In street cricket, there was like a table in the video we saw used as a stumps. There was just one bat that the runners and the batsmen used to exchange. The ball was of either a rubber or a tennis ball. No other tools, no helmets, no safety. But in a professional cricket, you have to do that. Strategy. When we play cricket with our friends, we do not have any strategy. Whereas in international form, they create a strategy. They understand each and every player of their opponent team. So guys, what I mean to say over here is like, do not focus on the cricket as a sport, but understand the terminology like scale. When it's purchasing, it's just a small thing. When it's procurement, it's more scalable. When using purchasing, you do not have any tools, you just go and buy. But in a procurement, you have a lot of tools like sourcing tools, contract tools, negotiation tools, lot of tools. You have a strategy, you have some rules, you have some processes, and that's a difference between purchasing and procurement. People, you can have anybody in your team doing a purchasing stuff, but you cannot have anybody in your team for procurement. You need to have a specialized team, a special skills. Like in cricket, when we play in street cricket, anybody will go out and bat. Anybody will, the same person is like bowling and fielding. Everybody are like an all-rounder. But in international cricket, it's not like that. Set of people are for batting, set of people are for bowling. There is one wicket keeper, and so is the procurement team. there are people which each skill sets different from each other. Whereas in purchasing, it's just the same skill set that everybody has to go and buy, go and purchase. That's it. There are other factors like governance, risks, outcome, transformation. As you can see on the screen as well, this is all which defines a gap, a bridge between purchasing and procurement. I hope with this example, it is clear for most of you what is the difference, actual difference between purchasing and procurement. In other terms, to give you another example from your daily life is when you want to buy a cloth for you. So if you are decided that you just want to go and buy a black t-shirt or a blue jeans, you'll go to any shop, buy a black t-shirt or a blue jeans, period. That's purchasing. But when you actually want to go and buy for a wedding occasion, you'll go to at least 5 to 10 shops. You'll analyze what material is it, what color is it, how does it fit you, how do you look in that outwear, what is the cost, is there any margin for bargain, is there any margin for quick delivery, is it ready made or do you have to go and find a tailor for stitching. All these aspects you have to consider is a procurement. Okay, so now moving on to the next slide. What are the roles and responsibilities of a procurement in an organization? So you might be thinking, oh, it's just going and purchasing things. No, that's not at it. There is a lot more to do inside in a procurement. First, the procurement has to support all the operational requirements. Said that they have to understand the business requirements. Then they also have to buy products as well as services. And it's not just simply buying them, it's buying them at the right price. It's buying them through a right channel, through a right sourcing. In the early 2000s, Nike, everybody knows Nike, correct? Giving you an example, Nike had a high hit on its brand and reputation because it was eventually disclosed that they are having a suppliers in countries like Thailand and Vietnam where children are forced to work. So that was not a right source for them. As a big brand, they should have taken care of the human rights, but they didn't. And they knew about this thing. They were not being transparent. So Nike had a very big hit in the market. They lost a lot of shares, they lost a lot of money. Eventually, then they came up with the transparency program into CSR, corporate social responsibility, where they controlled each and every channel of their suppliers, even the suppliers of their suppliers going down to tier 4 level. So this is also what a purchasing team has to take care. It could make a company or it could fall a company. All right. On top of that, buying products and services is not that easy. You also need to consider like what is the right specifications. You are in engineering, you might be learning different specifications for different materials and everything. Same thing, these people have to deal with it in the real life. Also, they have to understand what is the right quantity, how much is in inventory, how much we need to buy, and so on. Then I would say the second aspect of their responsibility is to manage the procurement process as well as their supply chain. By this, I mean they have to identify the opportunities. Like all purchasing should go through approved processes. Engineering and non-engineering parts should be separated and has to be through a proper Q&A. They have to manage internal operations. So what's the difference between operational requirements and internal operations? Internal operations is managing their own team, a team of procurement. How many people are there in their own team? Are they working in accordance to the guidelines? Are they working in accordance to the process? and so on. How many people are there? How many headcounts are there? What is the total cost of the procurement team to the company? How much is a procurement team spending to procure the goods or services for a company? So there are a lot of KPIs revolving around that. I will not go into much detail, but KPIs like spend per employee, per FTE, as well as cycle times of delivery between purchase requisition to purchase orders to invoicing. So there are a lot of KPIs. The third one, in the third point over here, is about having a relationship between different functional groups of the company. In every company, there are different functional groups like finance, marketing, HR, operations, sales, and so on. Sorry, Ujwal Admane, can you please go on
Yes.
with? Thank you. Okay, sorry for that. Uh, why do we? Okay, so I was in the functional groups, a relationship between. Why do they need to have a relationship? If you see my screen on the top right chart, you can see the relation. In engineering, they have to evolve and understand what are the new products, what is the new development that is going on. They have to understand the specification of the material and plan accordingly. Operations, procurement team have to understand and have a maintained relationship with operations, because they need to understand whatever items, products or services they are purchasing, is it the right fit for the operations team? Is the performance good enough? Sorry, someone is mute again. I'm muting them from my end only. Okay. Then they also need to understand the cycle time with the operations. For example, if you are purchasing 100 items, so when you are in the production of 85th item, purchasing people may need to take care of till ordering another 100 items. So then there is no gap in between the production of first 100 item and the second 100 item. They need to ensure all these activities. The third is marketing. Why marketing? Because the marketing people go in the market, design and market and sell new products. So they need to anticipate when is the new sales coming, when is the new requirements that is gonna come, what is the new planning that they have to do. So these are all the factors that they have to take care of. They also have to maintain relationship with the finance team, because they have to maintain their budget given by the finance team. So this is all extra role that is not within their department, but outside their department or outside their function that they have to take care of. Last but not the least, they have to support the organizational goals. What could be the organizational goals? Organizational goals could be as simple as saving money, could be as difficult as improving the CSR image. By CSR, I mean corporate social responsibility. In today, every big companies, Fortune 2000 companies, are having a brand name, but that brand name could be spoiled easily if they do not maintain their corporate social responsibility. In India, we always talk about companies. For example, let's say in India, we talk about the companies like Birla Group, we talk about like Tata Group, we talk about like Infosys. We just talk about only about Reliance when it's about money. Else, I've never seen that anybody talks about Reliance, although they are the richest family. But I've never seen them, because this company has very low or poor rating on CSR, although they claim it for CSR, but they do not have. They are not giving back to the society what they are taking from the society, as compared to Tata company or Infosys company. They are giving the society way too much than they are getting from the society. This is what is measured in international market, corporate social responsibility. Sorry, Paritosh Ajankar, please go on mute. Thank you. All right. So guys, if you get a chance, also do look at some of the important inspiring one-liners at the bottom. Like over this one is one of my favorite. Opportunity will not waste time with you unless you are prepared. To prepare yourself for any future opportunities. It will come and go, and you should be prepared to grab it. Okay, so now moving on to the next presentation. What is the importance of procurement? I would say it's, if a procurement team decides to save money or decides to reduce the cost and save the money, the impact is 3 times the revenue. So what is a revenue? Revenue is the money that a company generates by selling their products or services. Okay, but when you go out and sell your product or service, you also incur a cost. For example, if you go and sell a bottle of Coca-Cola, maybe it's like 10 rupees, but there is a cost. You have also purchased that bottle for maybe 3 rupees. On top of that, you have to keep that in a refrigerator, make it cold. On top of that, you will have an employee who will be on the counter. Plus, you may get a cash, then there is a cash transaction handling cost. You have to take the cash to the bank. So there are a lot of costs involved. Okay, so all this comes to revenue. All the cost that you incur in selling a product is called as cost of goods sold. Purchasing cost or a procurement cost is a part of cost of goods sold. There are other operational costs, there are salaries of the people, there are rent of the building, all the other costs combined is the cost of goods sold. But over here, I'm showing as a difference between revenue and procurement. So blue is revenue and yellow is procurement. The remaining is EBITDA. Any company in the world, any company is only interested to look at their EBITDA. What is EBITDA? It's earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. Companies may have taken loan, so they have to pay interest on that. They have to pay taxes to the government. They have to pay the depreciation of all the capital machines or equipments they have, as well as they have to pay amortization. It's related to their capital expenses, it's related to the shares, dividends, and amortizations. So any company, keep in mind, any company is only interested to improve or increase their EBITDA. That's it. That's why each and every company are operating. One basic principle. So let's take an example on the screen over here. I'll give you one example. For example, if you are 1 million is equivalent to 10 lakhs Indian rupees. So it's like if it's $100 million, it's like 10 crore dollars. So if any company is having a revenue of, let's say, 1 crore rupees, okay, but out of which 60 lakhs rupees would go into their procurement cost, another 20 lakhs rupees, maybe all the remaining non-addressable expenses. By non-addressable expense, I mean some expenses that you have to pay. You cannot go without paying it, like the rent, the utilities, the electricity and the water utilities, basically the salaries and so on, the cost of packaging. So all this, the cost of transport, you have to pay. You cannot go without paying this, and you cannot address this spend because it's compulsory. You have to pay. There is no scope of reducing this cost. And let's assume the remaining 20 lakhs is your profit. Let's consider that you are increasing your sales by 10%. That means you are earning 10 lakhs additional rupees. But in that case, how much is your profit? As shown earlier, from 1 crore, if your profit is 20 lakhs, so in the 10 lakhs, your profit should be around 2 lakhs rupees. So after increasing your sale by 10%, you are getting a profit of only rupees 2 lakhs. Okay. Now let's take the other scenario. What does a procurement team have to do in order to save that much money? So if there is a $20 million deal, that's like 20 lakhs, for example, let's say 20 lakhs rupees still. If a procurement team is able to save 5% of that, okay, so that's like 1 lakh rupees. And similarly, if we say that the procurement cost is 60 lakhs rupees out of the 1 crore initial that I was saying, if they are able to save just 5% of it, how they can save? There are a lot of levers through which a procurement team can go and start saving the money. That's why they are called procurement team and not a purchasing team. What are the levers? For example, price variance, contract negotiation, supplier rationalization, demand aggregation, and I can name and I can go on and name like at least 10 levers, such standardization, substitution, and so on. So let's say out of the 60 lakhs rupees, if they save 5%, that's like 3 lakhs rupees. Okay, they have done nothing. They have just saved 3 lakhs rupees. So your sales, your revenue is still 1 crore rupees. But now your profit has increased from the earlier 20 lakhs to additional 3 lakhs given by the procurement team. That's like 23 lakhs, which is in fact a 15% increase in your sales as equivalent. Because if you would have gone and sold by 10% additional, you would have only get 2 lakhs rupees. Now you are getting 3 lakhs rupees. So that means it's like 15%. So you can consider like savings. Sorry, somebody trying to draw on screen. Okay, anyways. So you can see that savings is 3 times huge impact better than sales. That's where procurement is really helpful, and it's really important for any organization. So moving on next, it's time between understanding peacetime CPU and wartime CPU. So what is a CPU? It's Chief Procurement Officer. Just like CEO of any company, they have a lot of C-suite people like COO, Chief Operating Officer, Chief Finance Officer, that's CFO. Similarly, we have CPO, Chief Procurement Officer. What is peacetime and what is wartime CPU? Let's go and see. We all know we are all from home. I assume everybody is joined from home. Why? Because of this pandemic, coronavirus. All the companies are not majorly shut down and the employees have to work from home. This is the time for the procurement team. This is the pressure on a procurement team because they have to still continue working. They have to still procure the goods. They have to still procure the services. Your suppliers, your clients are not even able to work. They are not even able to go to their office, but still you have to go and procure the products and services sitting at home. So this is a challenge for them. The supply chain in the entire world have been highly impacted, but still procurement team has to find a way. They have a lot of pressure on this. So this is a time when a procurement team will sit back and think what they want to be. Sorry, hosting this. Please try to avoid doing anything on the screen. Okay. So they have to sit back and think what they need to be. Can they work in the same manner as they used to work 2 months earlier? No, they cannot. If they work the same way as they used to work earlier, then they'll have to face a lot of consequences. Their company may eventually shut down for even a longer period. They may even go bankrupt. So there is a lot of pressure on the procurement team. What is the difference between peacetime CPU and wartime CPU. So basically, time is money in this current situation, and in fact, it's money every time. So peacetime, a normal CPU before this pandemic situation would think about the vision and strategy. What is my vision? What is my strategy? What do I need to do? But a wartime CPO will not waste his time in creating the strategy. He'll go quick, he'll create tactics, and he'll execute them quickly. There's a huge difference between tactics and strategy. When I was a student, I didn't know this. So every time I used to say, okay, I'm gonna make a strategy about how I learn this subject, how will I pass in this subject. To be honest, that's not a strategy, that's a tactic. A strategy is a much bigger role. So then later I realized the entire strategy was about how do I get going and complete my entire engineering in 4 years. That's a bigger strategy. And all the small things as submissions, assignment, exams, and everything is just a tactic. So in this wartime, a COVID-19 situation is like a war. People cannot go out. It's just like war. What are the rules? During the peacetime, during the normal time, a CPO will follow all the rules. Procurement team is made to follow all the rules and guidelines. But right now, if you have to succeed, you cannot follow old rules. You have to go and create new rules because the market is different. The scenario is different. Each and every spend counts. People earlier were thinking of cost reduction. By cost reduction, we mean like, okay, if I'm going and buying a new mobile phone of 20,000 rupees, I'll reduce the cost and buy of 18,000 rupees. But now it's about cost avoidance. How do I survive with my existing mobile phone for next 3 months and do not pay a single penny? That's your cost avoidance. So that's what people are thinking now. Probably everyone may have saved a hell lot of money in the last 2 months by just not by going out. So this is where you need to focus. Like you are avoiding a lot of costs. Goods that are very expensive. So earlier, people procurement team used to focus on global sourcing because they used to find everything cheaper in international market rather than in the local market. They used to import from China, they used to import from many other countries and everything. They never used to go local, even though if there is a supplier selling the same product just right next door. But they used to go global just for price. But now it's not about money. It's about localization, it's about safety, it's about security. It's about how quick it can be delivered. It's about supply chain. Risk about earlier, people never used to take a risk. It was like, okay, we'll calculate the risk, we'll measure the risk, and then we will make a strategy around it accordingly, and then we will see. But right now, you have to take risk. Each procurement team has to take a risk without assessing a quality of a product. So for example, a company which are having like 10,000 laborers, earlier if they used had to order something like a uniform or a mask, they'll first ask for a sample, test the quality. If they don't like it, they will return it. So these are like they have to avoid the risk. But now they have to go with the risk. They have to just go simply and order a 1 million mask for their 10,000 employees so that they can survive for next 10 days. They have to take the risk. They have to be focused. Earlier they can only focus on the processes. What is the process, what is the process, stick to the process. But now they have to work on the outcome. They have to draw the outcome. What will happen if I do this? It's not about process anymore, it's about the outcome. And last but not the least, earlier companies were trying to save the money for the company, but now procurement is trying to save the company. By trying to save the company, I mean in everything, supply chain, any FMCG, food, manufacturing, and fast moving items, goods, and industries, they are delivering you. They are delivering all the products and services to you like never before. They were delivering you maybe in 1 day earlier as well, same day delivery, next day delivery. But how many orders were there? 100 orders. Right now it's like 10 times more orders. So they have to scale up with that 10 times more orders. Still they are able to deliver you. So this is where they are saving the company. If they are not able to deliver you, then the company is going into loss. So supply chain, procurement work hand in hand. So then let's move on to the next slides. What are the career options in procurement if anyone is interested? It depends. There are a lot of career options and there are a lot of career goals. You have to stick to some position for 3 years, 4 years to gain experience, then you can get promoted and so on. So I have broken down the career levels in procurement into 3 different levels: lower level, mid level, and executive level. So in lower level, it's more about being an analyst, a procurement analyst. What does a procurement analyst do? Like person like me, we do not go and buy items. I do not go and buy items. I do not even go and source the items. I do not. What I do is like I create the process. I create a guideline. I implement all the tools required for procurement. I understand what tools are more efficient and what tools are not efficient. I implement that tool. I give my procurement team training on how to use that tool. I derive insights from the previous purchase history. What are the prices that we are paying? What are the prices that we should pay? What are the items that we are buying? What are the items we will be buying in next few months so that we can plan accordingly? What are the savings opportunities? What are the savings levers? So on. There are a lot of things that we do, but we do not go and buy. So for buying, there are buyers, there are purchasing agents, there are specialists, and so on. The next is the mid-level people. There are managers, senior analysts, there are directors, there are sourcing people, sourcing managers, category managers. What is the difference between sourcing manager and a category manager? These are different basically designation and roles. A sourcing manager is a very generic term, whereas a category manager is a very specific term. A sourcing manager can go and do the sourcing of any given product without any special skills. For example, he could be the person that goes and buys any office supplies or any admin supplies or even any packaging supplies in your company. Category manager is specific to a category. By category, I mean, let's say facilities, transport, IT is a category. So they are responsible for purchasing all the items in the IT, hardware, softwares, everything. So if a person is just a graduate, a normal graduate, they might not have that much knowledge of what is the difference between a Lenovo ThinkPad laptop or a Dell laptop, Dell Latitude laptop, which is the right one to buy for the organization. What are the different cables? How do you install a software in a laptop? How do you secure your laptop from attacks, phishing attacks, anything? So this is something that only an IT engineer will understand. So they could, if they are interested, not going into technical field, but remain into semi-technical, that's where you can be IT category manager. And last but not the least, it's about executive levels. So like the CPO, VP of procurement, senior VP of procurement, chief procurement officer, and everything. That takes time. That takes around at least 15 years of work experience to reach that level, because you need to have experience in each and every aspects of all the procurement. How is it related with finance? How is it related with other functions? As I explained earlier, what is the impact to the industry if we do not do this, if we do this and that? So there are a lot of things a person needs to get an experience until he can say that he deserves to be a CPO. Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. That's all from my end. Now we can move to the question and answers. If anybody has any questions, please ask me the questions. Now you can unmute yourself, but one at a time, please.
if anybody having any questions, then they can ask.
And it's not necessary the question has to be related to procurement. You can ask any questions. I'm also an engineer like you from Nagpur. So you can ask any
You can
questions.
raise you can raise your questions via chat also.
Mr. Vivek, I just want one questions from students end.
Yes.
Hello. What is the opportunities of employment for students in purchase department or procurement department?
There are a lot of opportunities. As I mentioned that buyer,
Can you
the
can you guide them how to approach?
Sure. So the best thing to approach is to apply, and apply. When I finished my engineering, I took a CV, created my own CV. I took 50 copies of it. I went out on the streets to each and every company, went into the reception, dropped my CV over there. I went online, applied to like hundreds of jobs in just a matter of 15 days. I did not have any other work in the life typically. So I just did all these things in 15 days. I received an interview call. It's not about how where you have to go. It's about you have to take efforts. You have to take efforts. You just cannot sit simply home and expect that you will receive an offer. Even before your campus interview starts, you should be prepared. As I mentioned in my slide, you should be prepared. You should be prepared. Buyer or a purchasing and anything does not require heavy talent like in technical field that they will come and ask you technical questions. The most junior, most position is the very easy part to go and start into. There are a lot of companies out there. Every company requires a purchasing people. Every company, every company requires it. So there's a huge opportunity.
का लीड करू का?
Mr. Vivek, which procurement ERP you are using at your industry?
So we are not using an ERP because we are a technology company. Symphony
Okay.
being a technology company, we provide service to another companies, and we have our own procurement tools and SaaS-based platforms basically.
The SAP-based platform.
Yeah, so we are a technology company. We are using a SaaS-based platform, but we are aware of several ERPs like SAP, Oracle, because we deal with at our clients and to extract the data, transform the data, and show them digitally onto our SaaS platforms.
Hello, Vivek sir. I am Ujjwal Admane.
Yes, hi.
Sir. My question is: in this current pandemic situation, what will be the next procurement in the field of procurement? What will be the opportunities for us? Because all the job is now get losting. So, what will be the opportunity instead of what we have facing the negative side of it?
So the next big opportunity would be about going localization. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, now companies are not looking to source or buy their products from international market. They are looking to buy it locally. So they have to now train all their employees to how to buy it locally because everybody were trained to buy it from global market. So instead of training, if they are finding a new resource who is already aware about the local market, what's going in your city, what's the news in your city, what is the industries in your city, what is your city most producing of, having all this local knowledge helps any company to hire you because you are a local guru basically.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Vivek, this is Rupesh.
Yes.
One of the participant raises questions. After B, which specialization of MBA provide more benefits to technical students?
Sorry, which MBA? Okay.
Which
So
specialization of MBA provide more benefits to technical students?
okay, so MBA
Mr.
is not
Ishant
for
Rajguru raises the
sorry,
question.
sure, no problem. Okay, so MBA is not for having a career in technical. MBA is a business. It's management. It's not about technical. Okay, so if you want to do technical, please don't do MBA. You can go into either MS or MTech, I would say. MBA is more of a general business. It gives you business acumenship. It helps you understand how the business is working. A technical people do not need to understand how a business is working. They just have to be technical. But an MBA gives you an overall knowledge. What is marketing? How does marketing work? How does finance work? How does management work? What are their thinkings? How do they take the decisions when the share prices are dropping?
Good.
Okay, so there are,
Hello.
yeah, sure.
Hello, sir. This is Yugal Vasade from Nagpur.
Yes, hi.
Sir, is it useful for an engineering student to do MBA after BE?
Of course, it is useful for anybody to do an
But
MBA.
it is a technical subject. But he studied technical subject. Then why should he decided to choose MBA?
Okay, so first of all, I would say MBA. I won't advise anybody. Personally, I won't advise anybody to do MBA immediately after graduation. In order to you should have at least a minimum of 3 years of work experience. Then there lies a true meaning of doing an MBA. Then you will understand why and how a business is running. It's not necessary that why a technical person should not do an MBA. Why not? As I mentioned, a technical person, like CEO of Google, CEO of any other companies, are technical person. How did they become that? They need to understand the business, right? It's not necessary that a technical person do not understand the business. I myself, for example, was a last ranker. I never came in top 10. I was always in the last bottom 5 rank because I never understood technical. I understood technical, but more of a technical, I understood how do I apply this? How do company make profit from this? How can we make people use it? Maybe many of you will have the same questions. How do you actually release your product or service? What is the end use of it? Is this any useful to any people? Why is many companies failing and why are many companies rising? So it all comes down to what are your skills on applying a technical thing or managing a technical thing. So then you can decide if you want to manage a technical thing, do an MBA. If you want to apply a technical thing, stay into technical domain. Hope this answers.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for the session.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning.
Sir. What type of specializations are required to grab the opportunities available in this field? What type of specializations are required?
Honestly, there are no specialization required to get into procurement. If you want to be into analyst, there are two sides of procurement. One is to be an analyst and one is to be a buyer. To become a buyer, there are no special skills required. The only skills that you require is to be able to convince that you can buy efficiently, you can buy effectively. You need to show me, like, okay, whatever you are purchasing, I can come to you and ask you, why do you have like this mobile? Why do you have this bike? Why have you purchased this? You should be able to convince people what was the reason. Why did you do that? Why did you spend so much of money? So basically, it's just about not about choice. It's also about strategy or a tactic. So basically, there is not much detailed skills required that you need to know this software, you need to know that software. Yeah, I would say the basic thing that is required is Microsoft Excel, which is used in each and every industry. I mean, instead of spending a lot of money on high-end softwares, go and watch tutorials on YouTube and learn Excel. That's the basic requirement on all the industry. But on the other side, if you want to become an analyst, on an analyst, you need to have analytic skill. How do you get this analytic skill? It's basically coming from your maths, coming from all the subjects that you are learning in engineering. That's it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Myself, Dr. Mandogade, Head Mechanical Engineering Department.
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Yes, sir.
So any participant are asking question?
Yes, many people were asking the questions.
Because if student participants are asking the question, they may continue if you permit to ask them the question.
Yeah, sure. We can continue. We have still 10
Yeah,
minutes
yeah,
in this.
definitely. Yeah,
Please
yeah, yeah.
continue.
Please ask the question.
Anyone else? You can also send questions on chat box. Yes, Rishi Kumar.
Hello,
Yes, hello.
hello, hello,
Yes.
hello, Vivek sir.
Yes, hi.
हेलो है हेलो विवेक सर, मेरे से क्वेश्चन था एक आपसे.
Yes, ask me.
What is important in MBA after engineering? Because after engineering, then why you will doing engineering? मतलब MBA हम लोग कर रहे हैं engineering के बाद, तो engineering क्यों कर रहे हैं? फिर MBA ही कर लेते हैं. Engineering करने का काम क्या था?
Okay, so first of all, why is everybody under wrong impression that MBA and engineering are totally different? It cannot be merged. Please, please, please remove this from your mind. I know that this is coming from many of the people have gone and watched Amir Khan's movie Three Idiots and taken that dialogue कि अगर engineering ही करना था या doctor ही करना था, दूसरा कुछ करना था, बैंक में काम करना था, तो ये सब क्यों किया? That is total nonsense. It's total nonsense. Why did Amir Khan in fact become an actor even after an education? He did some graduation, then why did he not continue working with us? Why did he become an actor? So it's never about why do we are doing this. You chose engineering because maybe you were interested or maybe you were forced to do that. So if you were interested in doing engineering, are you still interested? Are you still interested? If yes, then please continue your career in engineering. If you are forced to do engineering, are you still interested? If no, then what is your interest? Develop your interest, develop your passion, and go after that. If you go after what you think is the right thing, then you will not succeed. If you go after what makes you feel the right thing, then that is the scope of your career. So MBA, what do you think is what an MBA is? It's Masters of Business and Administration. Basically helps you to understand a business. A business has a lot of functions. It has technical functions as well. There are CTOs, chief technical officers. Unless they understand how the business works, how they have to manage their seniors, the shareholders, the CEO, they will not be able to become a CTO. In order to understand how a business works, you need to do a master's in business.
Okay sir, okay, thank
Okay.
you. Okay. I will understand.
All right. Any other questions? We still have time.
Any question from any participant?
Yeah.
No.
Don't be scared of asking questions. No questions are wrong or no questions are stupid. Every question has some or the other misconception that can be cleared out.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, Vivek. There is one question from one of the participant, Jui Taksande. He's asking about would a fresher get affected due to this COVID-19 pandemic, as there is now lot unemployment caused affecting lakhs of people across the country. Specific about
Okay.
freshers.
A very good question. I love this question. Very good question. So basically, I don't think so there will be any effect on the freshers. The only thing that will be like it may be delayed. You may not get a job in July. You finish your course in May or June and you expect to get a job in June and July, but that may be delayed. You may start getting a job in September or October, let's say, but it won't impact the freshers. In fact, contrary, freshers will get more jobs than ever. Why? Because companies are losing money. They are losing real money and they want people also. So how do they balance after losing the money and getting the people? They will go after the freshers because freshers are perfect people who can work for any salary, who are very flexible, who are highly motivated, who will work very rigorously. So freshers will have a better market. Let's say if I want to go and hire one analyst or two people, I extremely require two people working under me. But earlier I used to hire only experienced people who are having 3 years of experience minimum. But now I would go and hire two freshers and say them, okay, I'll train you for 1 month. You have to be this good. Okay, so freshers will have an advantage. Don't worry. This is my perspective. It's just that you have to go and find the opportunity and be prepared for it. Don't just sit home. If you are able to go for one question is, if you are unable to go for full-time MBA due to jobs, is it useful to go online part-time MBA?
May start.
Yeah, it's fine. It's never about doing anything full-time or part-time. It's your choice whether you want to do a full-time MBA, part-time MBA, online MBA. The only difference between a full-time MBA and an online MBA is about dedication. When you are doing a online MBA, you are never dedicated. So if you think that you will be as dedicated as a full-time MBA, then please go ahead, no problem. But I would suggest do not do any
3 minute time है बेटा.
Yeah, sorry. Do not do any course from any universities or any just colleges just for the sake of doing it. Research. Every university has got some importance. If you go and do from any other universities, you may not get much value. Like doing an online course from this Wellinkers or anything is recognized. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Myself Dr. Mandore.
Yes, sir.
Sir, as you discussed regarding the opportunity for the fresher, opportunity for that is the fresher student. Now, I think has the policy of Indian government. Now, the lot of opportunity will be there after this lockdown situation will be over, because Indian government is going for that is our own production system.
Correct.
Yeah, so that will create an opportunity, that is the good market for the industry as well as that is the engineering graduate. Only the requirement is that the students should be prepared for them, because lot of engineering students are there. They are just taking the degree. What is my experience? But in addition to degree, if the students are having a special knowledge about a particular field, then definitely the student will be absorbed in this market.
Correct. So
on behalf of yes.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. Like I've really observed one thing in many students, in many people, and I also lacked that thing when I just started working. Is people is basically do not understand the importance of one particular software. That's Microsoft Excel. That's the most amazing product ever, and it's used almost every company. It's used in almost every company. If you have two skills less, but you are able to say that Microsoft Excel, any company will hire you, because it takes like 15 to 20 days to train you on that, and you are already on that. And it's very easy.
उधर कौन जाएगा घुसने के लिए?
हॉटस्पॉट ला बेटा.
यहाँ पे लगा लो.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
पण त्याला 3 ग्रिप लावायला.
So on behalf of
नाही तर मग ते.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Mr. Vivek. Hello.
Yes, I'm.
Kindly unmute all participants, please. All participants.
Yep.
So on behalf of Mechanical Engineering Department, Nagpur Institute of Mr. Vivek. Again, Mr. Vivek is the pass-out student of our institute. So I am very much proud of that thing. One of my alumni has been placed in a good organization. Only the requirement is that every student should take the efforts. If you take the efforts, definitely there are a number of opportunities. So from the Vivek resume,
it has been already proved that institutes and your background doesn't matter. What effort that you will take, that matters more. So I thanks all participants for joining. In between, I get a call from maximum participant. They cannot join because of limit of 100. So for sometimes I was not in the meeting. So I am very much thankful to Mr. Vivek for sparing his valuable time with the student, faculties, and our participant. And I also hope that in future also that we can arrange this kind of session of you, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. I think I may have a recording of the session. I will share with you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you can distribute it to the students whoever are interested.
Yeah, definitely. So
Okay.
you can share this recording with Mr. Rupesh sir. Then through Rupesh sir, we will circulate to the participant if they require.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Have a good week. Bye.
Thank you, sir.